good, it's unbelievable.
It's really good.
And hello, everybody. It is Tom Chenault. This is the Tom Chenault Show. Thanks for waiting a couple of extra seconds. I got a little carried away talking to the guests off screen. And here we are. Now we're rolling, and it is a great day. We've got Troy Dooley. We've got Kevin Thompson. And Tony Cannuli seems to have dozed off or something, so we don't have him yet, but we will. This is going to be a great show. We're going to get right down to brass tacks. I gave these guys permission to just shoot from the hip and talk about what's going on out there because it's a mess. And obviously California is trying to make independent contractors out of a lot of people, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, people like that. I heard direct selling is on an exemption list right now, but you've got to stay active and you've got to stay proactive and you've got to get your senators and your congressmen and those people to understand that we don't want that happening. We want to stay independent contractors. How you doing, Kevin Thompson? What's going on?
I'm doing great. So glad to be on your program. I love it. And I love that you got my good friends here, Tony and Troy. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, and I can't believe that one thing that's also kind of funny is you got the most hate mail before the show.
So, I did. Yeah, that's great.
And,
great.
And then Tony was number 2. But I'm telling you what, Troy Dooley was just closing in. When I put up this morning that Troy Dooley was going to be on here, my email just started firing up. So my phone number, somebody put it up as 720-840-7222. So if you want to say something horrible, please put it on my phone and I will talk about it no matter what. You know, if you can say in me, but I don't want you to put it on the comments because that gets things jacked up and it turns into kind of a bad deal. So whatever you do, send me a text, 720-840-7222. We will not ignore you guys. This is all about you. And so what's going on out there, Kevin? You can lead it off. And I see Tony's with us now. So fire it up. What's going on in the world of regulation, bad companies, good companies, the FTC, the ASPCA, everybody?
Oh my goodness, where to start? Okay, well, you started off with the big news regarding California and their statute that they successfully passed, which essentially makes all Uber drivers and Lyft drivers employees. So Uber and Lyft are going to have to get their act in order in that particular state and treat their drivers like employees. And it opens up a host of issues in that particular state for those companies. When I first read it, I sort of panicked because direct sellers, network marketing people, distributors would clearly be considered employees under the law. But the DSA, to their credit, and the DSA, love them or hate them, right? They one thing they do well is they lobby well. They lobbied for a special exemption for network marketers. And essentially the statute, it's a laser guided missile targeting directly Uber and Lyft. That's it. And essentially, here's the standard that made me nervous. If the company is working with contractors and the company is primarily in the business with what the contractors are doing, those contractors cannot be considered contractors. Let me give you an example. I have a home. If I hire a painter, I'm not in the business of painting. So that is an independent contractor relationship. If I am in Mary Kay and I'm primarily selling cosmetic and skincare products through distributors, if that's the primary business, those people cannot be considered contractors. But thankfully, there's an exemption. But here's what I was telling Tony earlier. That's just in California. So now you're going to have legislatures in other states that say, hey, wait a second. We want some of this W-2 income too for taxes, state income taxes.
Yeah.
So you're going to have, this is a fight that's going to be fought in countless states now, especially after the tax code was modified in 2018, where your state and local taxes can't be deducted. Well, they can, but up until $10,000. So now states are trying to figure out how to increase their revenues. They're going to take a bite at this apple, and hopefully, the industry gets an exemption in these other states as well. We don't know.
But Kevin, let me ask a question, because the federal code literally lists real estate agents and direct sellers as independent contractors. Will that take precedent over the state stuff?
I don't know, but you're right. There's a provision in the IRS code where it considers network marketers as independent contractors, but that's federal tax. You know, the federal typically trumps state. It's right now it's a bit of gray. But right, you know, it's not a hair on fire type of emergency, but it's something to certainly keep an eye on.
And Uber and Lyft right now are not too happy about it. They just, I think they're putting about $90 million into fighting this and getting an exemption for it. So there's definitely going to be a lot of smoke around this for the next year or so, up until the election, I would imagine. And as Kevin and I was talking about, if for some reason they could get traction, I know the DSA has done a good job with lobbying, but if they could get traction in the direct selling environment, then you're going to have states like Massachusetts, obviously California. Companies may be in a precarious position as to how they can now work in those states if they have to reclassify to employee status.
We've already had some clients that have gone ahead and incorporated just in California, and they're running their reps through California in that corporation versus the main one. But what about rideshare companies that actually are a network marketing model? Would they fall under that, or would they fall under a direct sales deal?
Well, it depends on the language and the exemption. I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up, but I think I think the exemption applies to selling product. It might not apply to service companies, which that'd be an interesting thing to figure out. But the news just hit 2 or 3 days ago.
We got two of the scat pickers watching. We got Mel Atwood and Richard Bliss Brook, I can see out there in radio land. So just prepare for some lobbying from those guys. But, you know, it's critical that we all understand that the Association of Network Marketing Professionals is what it is. Richard Brook is actually starting something similar himself, just a think tank of bringing some people together. We need to unite. And I don't know how we unite. I don't know if it's at the ANMP. I don't know if it's with Brook. I don't know if it's with Dooley. I don't know if it's with Cannuli. And I don't know if it's with Thompson. But we've got to figure out to get a bigger voice out there to where we aren't getting knocked around like ping pong balls because we refuse to lock arms. And it's something I think critically important that has to come with integrity instead of everybody trying to cross recruit and all the stuff that people don't like. So I want to talk about that today too, kind of.
Troy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do believe in associations. I think there's a couple out there right now that if they could work in tandem together, then I think we could go somewhere, because they seem to include both companies, reps, supply companies, vendors that are there. And I think that if we're going to shift the tide from what public opinion is, from what regulators are looking at, what the media, what Wall Street looks at, then we have to take the bull by the horns and just stop it, because we live in a post-trust era where all this hype and crap that we've talked about in the past, this is free, this is your dream, you're going to retire the best you ever have. People don't believe any of that. After 2008, when Wall Street screwed everybody, Main Street doesn't believe anything anybody says. So they're going to dig deep. And when they find out that most of these claims are just fallacies, whether it's health claims or whether it's income claims, then they're going to come after us worse than any critics have come after us. And I think that's why Showtime has their show. I think that's why you see the late night guys talking about MLM. We just got to fix this crap, but we've got to come together to do it, or it isn't going to happen.
Kevin and I were just talking about that just a little bit ago, about the effect the pop culture, Troy, is having on the MLM industry. And as a matter of fact, so much so that we both decided that we would do a full show on that topic. And it is a lot of people think that our enemies are our companies that we're in competition. It's not. There's so much more to this argument. So that's something that needs to very much be discussed. Regarding the associations, being around the ANMP or the DSWA or the MLMIA, the organization I ran for a number of years, one of the conversations I had about that real briefly was with Garrett McGrath, who runs the ANMP. And Garrett and I was like, why can't we have more of a DRA style, direct distributor rights associations? For those that don't know what that is, that was the precursor that Rod and Marcy Cook started before the ANMP. And one of the things that Garrett said, there's a potential for liability. There always is. If you're going to be a watchdog, an advocate, if you're going to fight against things that maybe aren't good, you got to be careful. The key word is responsible. You have to be responsible. There's a definite liability issue there as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you fight. I think it's collaboration. Everybody comes together. The fact that reps in and of themselves are statutory non-employees, there are no rights. I mean, it's a work for hire, no matter how we look at it. So if we can come together to where we've got company owners and we've got the reps and we've got the vendors saying, look, here's really the standard that we all need to work with, then I think that's where we shift the tide. When we can get lawyers and we can get CPAs and those folks saying, look, let's put this together. Here's how it's supposed to be done. And we move that and we go forward with it. Regulators, I think, will see that. The more, and Tony, you're good at this, the more compliance that we actually have when people come into companies where they see, okay, this is what we can and we can't do. And it's a broad field that we can work in. If we work in it, it's just company owners and the reps in the field don't work in it. And leadership rolls downhill. So when that company owner is flying by the seat of her britches or his britches, then I guarantee you the field's going to do the same thing.
Well, I'll tell you one thing right now, we've got the nucleus. And I don't care. I saw Kevin Thompson inside of a crowd of a bunch of people with one coin stand on a stage and say, you know what? And he just went nuts because he had the guts to stand up and say, we've got to police this profession. Otherwise it will disappear. And I don't know if that's liability. I don't know. He ended up being right, but every one of us have a chance to have a background, a backbone. And most of us are making a tremendous amount of money, and we've got to be responsible to the profession that's paying us. That's what I'm saying. So we're going to take a little break. Thanks a lot, GCN. We really appreciate you having us on. Stick around, Rick. And this is the Tom Chenault Show. We'll be right back. And we're back. Holy mackerel, I brought my little mini-me with me, and say hello to Adrian Chenault, everybody. And this is the commercial portion. There's a guy that's in the studio audience that was going to leave because he thought it was a real commercial. And the best part of this show is the commercials. That's what's so fun. And you got to look at Troy.
In the house.
Look, Troy, where are you in a seedy motel somewhere?
Looks like it.
I'm one corner of my bedroom looked almost cool. Okay. So
normally it's American flags and football helmets and all kinds of stuff. And okay, good. Just so long as you're not out there doing some hanky panky somewhere. I thought we were all right. That makes me happy. So Adrian, what's going on?
Where you're at, man? Goodness.
Hey, you're the one in the hotel rooms in bathtubs and all kinds of interesting things that we see, Tom. Okay.
There's no doubt about it. Well, I'm vulnerable. I'm not afraid to show you guys my dark side. So that's true.
Your backside or your dark side?
It might be both.
Did you see that picture I took of Denise the other day when she was in the bathtub? She was so pissed off, and like nothing was showing except her face. So she puts her hand in front of her face, which made her look a whole lot less. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Why are so people phobic about that? It's crazy.
It didn't make her look less. She looked more. I mean, we spread that all over the place, man. Let me tell you.
That was so cool, you guys. Yeah, she's so worried about me these days. She puts on a swimming suit to bathe just because she knows me and my cameras. So tell me a story. What's going on?
The setups just get better and better.
I like your t-shirt.
That's good. Yeah. So we're talking contact mapping on the commercial. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for being on the show. And the thing I actually wanted to talk about is that we are doing a really cool webinar on the 26th. And so we should talk a little bit about that because those are always really fun and it's free and you should come to it.
And we've changed everything because I am convinced I have cracked the code, and I will explain to you guys what that means on the show. But everybody is trying to learn the skills, and the skills are such a small part of the whole equation called success. And what you're all trying to do is build a complete tribe of fiercely loyal leaders to create a huge organization. And we finally figured out how to explain that to you where it really makes some sense using the contact mapping app. And we're going to show that to you on the 26th.
Yeah, it's on the 26th. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern, and you can register for it now. So you go to contactmapping.com/webinar, and you can sign up for free. We're going to do it live on Zoom, and then there will be a replay afterward if you can't make it on there live. But it's going to be awesome. And really what it comes down to is it's about getting out of your head and really into your true self. It's about getting past, obsessing about that there's some next skill that I need to acquire, and what's the internal work that you need to do in order to show up differently to unlock that kind of success that you're looking for. Because there's a very high probability you already know enough. It's an internal shift that you need to make.
Very, very cool. All right, you're done. Here's the deal. No, you can stay. We're coming back on the air in a minute, but I want to talk about Taylor and Larry Thompson's seminar down.
Oh yeah.
It was absolutely unbelievable, everybody. And I went down there with a little bit of trepidation because I wasn't sure what it was going to come out of it. And I am telling you, these two people are on top of it. They are changing with the times, and they're keeping history intact. So who they are as network marketers isn't lost. They're just adapting to the times, which is what I've wanted to do and haven't been able to adapt. So if you guys get a chance to pay attention to Larry and Taylor Thompson, I want you to do that because they're killing it. Do agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Shocking. All right. So we're coming back right after that. So stick around. Bye.
Adrian.
Bye, Adrian. He'll be back. And we're back. It's the Tom Chenault Show. Rick, you can leave. And it is a great, great day here. And I have got the most unbelievable guests with me in this order: Tony Cannuli, Troy Dooley, and Kevin Thompson. And the reason I said that was because I said it the other direction the last time, and I didn't want Tony to get an inferiority complex. But these three guys are truly warriors for the profession. And they are out there every day. I'm on all kinds of sidebar conversations with them. And I am telling you, they are out there protecting your back. And those of you that are mad because Kevin gets mad at your company, or Troy gets mad at your company, or Tony gets mad at your company, it's not about you. It's about it, and it's about this profession that we have to protect. And if something is egregious, somebody needs to say it, right, boys?
You know what? I'm gonna read a quote because of the hate mail that we received before the call. And I acknowledge that in the crypto community, those guys don't like me because I've made the research very clear that in most cases, they're selling unregistered securities. And for the most part, I don't go after companies specifically. You know, I went after Coincino pretty hard, which was a token company involving a casino in the Philippines. What could possibly go wrong? Those guys didn't like me. I lost friends over that. I've said some things about Kuvera with cloud mining and trading. They paid a fine there. I paid a price for that. I really can't think of many companies I have specifically gone after, and I should do it more. But as Troy will tell you, because I've had to bail him out from all the cease and desist he used to get, it's hard because when you're right in this industry, when you can just see the storm clouds forming and you say something, the problem is it takes about a year to be proven right. And that gives the other side time to attack you and attack your character and attack your integrity and say you're a Looney Tune. And then it takes a year later, you're proven right. Digital Altitude is another one. We did a public report on that company, and then we were attacked for that. And then a year later, they were shut down by the Federal Trade Commission. So it's hard business. But here's the quote that I think is applicable for Tony and Troy and myself. Anybody that wants to sort of call out somebody, even you, Tom, a man is honorable in proportion to the personal risk he takes for his opinion. The thing is, as an attorney, I will admit, more so than my competitors, I put my opinions out there for two reasons. Number one, I think people need to know certain things, like cloud mining or crypto is dangerous, right? Don't do it, or token sales, or whatever the subject matter is of the day. I put my opinions out there. I think it's important, number one. Number two, I do it because I get feedback. Troy knows, you all know this. When you put your opinions out there, they're tested. People will then contact me, and you know what happens? You make the right friends and you make the right enemies. So I think it's very important to communicate. And every now and then you get a sue-happy moron that will send a threat. Generally, they don't follow up. And if they do, involved, and we can help out our firm.
And I'm kind of ready for it. We're putting this new website together where there's no clients. Nobody can pay for anything. We're gonna review companies just straight across the board. Hey, this is great. This is what we see. These are ingredients. Hey, this is bad. This is what we see. Because the more I've studied the journalistic side of this, if we stay within the lines of what is just reporting and there's no financial bias on the back end, then I'm willing to go to war. Because if somebody wants to sue us I mean, we'll have to raise funds, and I think we can, but I think Discovery then will be able to allow us to push this thing forward.
I think you raise funds before you do it. Raise like 50,000, put it in a trust account, put it in our trust account. We don't touch it, but it's there. And if you never use it, you return it to people that paid. And that way you've got some dry powder, and people know you have dry powder. It's important. We were talking about what can we do as a profession to help. Yeah. I think, forming these various associations, based on my experience and based on what I'm seeing, it hasn't moved the needle, right? A lot of the crappy companies out there, they're not hiring attorneys. They're not hiring pay plan consultants. They're going to do it anyways. They don't care about A&MP standards. So you need some sort of adult these are my opinions, and you guys might disagree. So the FTC, it serves a valuable function there. They show what behavior is good and bad, but they're limited. And the DSSRC, it's called the Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Committee. That's important. Okay. They're getting more involved. You've got Truth in Advertising. So Troy, you want to model your site after somebody. I think Truth in Advertising provides a good service because they come at you with just facts. They don't offer opinions. And I know they are not popular in our industry. People think that they target unfairly certain companies, but you have to admit, they don't report on salacious material. It's, hey, here's 50 examples of inappropriate health claims. And they don't opine from there. They leave it up to the readers, and they leave it up to the FTC to take it from there.
We got to take a break. It is Tom Chenault. It is the Tom Chenault Show. This commercial is for Richard Blissbrook. Pack that right after this. And we're back. It's Tom Chenault, and Adrian's here again. Isn't this exciting?
It's incredible.
We can just shoot the breeze because we got so many muckety mucks on here. Here's the deal. You got to go to contactmapping.com. Go to contactmapping.com. Get on the newsletter. Subscribe to the 30-day deal. Now we won't talk about that anymore. We're just going to talk to these guys because
that's perfect.
Yeah. So you got Brooke, you got Brian McMullen, you've got Danny Venegas, you've got Sorensen, you got Jeff Welch, you've got all kinds of really, really strong hitters watching you guys today. So don't screw this up.
I mean,
you say Jeff Welch?
Yeah, you got Jeff Welch, and then Kevin's mentioned the casino place. So this is good.
Yes. So you should see my phone blowing up. You guys are you guys are so not popular. It's hysterical. Oh my gosh. No, Troy has not gained any weight. So it's unbelievable. He looks
actually lost weight.
Yeah, you look, Troy, you actually look. What does your shirt say? What does that say?
I'll take a bullet for.
Oh, that is very, very good.
Oh, but look, man, I got therapy this weekend. Look at this one. Well, you can't see it on your deal, boy. I got my whole upper arm done now. So I'm covering up my fat, man, with tattoos.
Why did you do that?
Oh, dude, because I love it. I love the eagle. I love the American. That's my whole patriotic arm on that one. The other one's all about Paige. So,
Does it hurt?
This one, yeah, it did. It was 7.5 hours, and they went into my armpit. Your armpit with a needle. I can tell you what, pissed me off. I know how to take care of you now.
What if Paige dies?
What about it? I'm not gonna put another woman's name on there. I got 5 daughters. You want me to bring another woman into my life? That ain't gonna happen.
If she dies, you have to cut your arm off. This is nuts. Oh man, stay healthy, Paige, please. That's unbelievable. So, Tony, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great, actually. And just thinking about what Troy said about the journalism component and going to war got me kind of excited because, Troy was a Marine and I'd want to go to war with him. But at the end of the day,
we got to come back and talk on the show about that, though, Tony.
Absolutely.
I want that in the radio, in the body, because it's important stuff. So we're going to come back to that.
So should I show my tattoos then?
We do. You just mess around all you want.
I have one. Yeah, I think I have one somewhere.
Yeah, so do I. But I'd have to be taking a bath to show you. So if you guys want me to show it to you, I'd be happy.
Been down that road before.
So the name of the game, yeah. So what do you want to talk about?
I'm good. I defer the time.
So, yeah. I love these. These guys are my friends, and you know what we don't want to do is kill anybody out there as far as any individuals, but the companies out there that are playing games. Our job as a complete organization needs to be able to step up. And Troy, I actually do believe, and I want to talk to you about on the other side of this, about the financial consideration part of it, because you can't be a journalist if somebody's paying you. And
Absolutely, that's my point.
yeah, so we, so I don't know how you going to monetize yourself. Are you just going to use your great wealth, or how are you going to?
No, well, actually, that's part of it. We're underwriting the website, but here's the kicker: we can do it exactly like the Fox Nation. We can do it exactly like Fox News, CNN, CNBC. It doesn't matter. I can have advertisers all day long. Those advertisers can't be my clients. So my clients are going to suffer because I can't talk about their business on that website at all. But we can hit the industry, hit certain companies, good and bad. That's the whole thing. If I'm bringing in companies and we're talking about a company that has no monetary attachment to it, then we've got a clean shot here, 100%. And if I really want to go mean, then I'll send it to Corey Augustine. He's down in the Philippines. I don't have to worry about it. We'll just send it over.
Or Oz.
Yeah, or Oz. Either way.
Richard Brooke is out of his mind. I mean, this guy needs a life. He's in Hawaii. His wife's out of town, and all he has time to do is post on Facebook. It's hilarious. Richard, go hug that dog or something. He wants to buy. Here's what he said.
Hawaiian stuff,
I am going to buy some colloidal silver impregnated bacon. I have no idea what that means. If you guys do, please tell me that. That's one comment from him.
Sounds keto friendly,
Is that like CBD ice cream?
That is hilarious. All right. So we're coming back right after this. So Adrian, great job. Contactmapping.com.
That's the one.
That's the
one
one.
and only.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
You got to get a t-shirt. I feel like I've known that kid all his life. All right. We are back. It is Tom Chenault. This is the Tom Chenault Show. I hope you're having a fun time today. I've got Troy Dooley. I have got Kevin Thompson, and I've got Tony Cannuli. And this is a great show. We were talking about an association of fierce warriors trying to fight against the bad companies, keep this profession together. And Tony Cannuli, talk about that a little bit, about jumping in the foxhole with Troy Dooley. What does that look like to you?
It looks like it'd be a lot of fun as long as someone brings the bacon in the fry pan and we can have we can enjoy whatever. Now, jumping in, I was saying that in the middle of the commercial because Troy is one of the greatest fighters I've seen in the industry, and he's a former Marine. Now, I was in the Navy, and I only got one tattoo. So, but I need someone like him because I'll go out there a lot of times, as you know, Tom, and I'll just attack, right, on companies that are hurting people. If you're hurting single moms, you're hurting people's families, I have a tendency sometimes to get a little on the wild side. But Troy mentioned about journalism, and he's figured out some things, I think, and it makes a ton of sense. But I don't think there's anybody in the profession that has more understanding of journalism as it applies. And to be able to go out there and literally call out the bad actors and players and literally encourage them, we'll say, not force them, but encourage them to make better decisions, I think is a huge benefit. And, as far as monetization goes, the way that Troy is talking about it, and you may want to cover this, Troy, for a minute, that's what I've done with Kevin Grimes on this legal show, the first branded real legal show that we're doing. We have no monetization around it. It's just a higher responsibility to do the greater good. Why? Well, like they all, for the non-personal development people, they may not understand this quote, but a lot of them will, is for evil to prevail, all as good men and women have to do is nothing. So we always have to do that. Now, we're not saying that there's evil, but there can be things that at the end of the day hurt your sister, your brother, your mother, as Tom talks about the orphans, the grandmother, that's what our industry is made up of. Remember that. This business is built on the back of people, your neighbors, your family members, and sometimes we forget that. And so it is critically important. I think Troy has some great ideas that I'm excited to employ. And I know that one of the things that we wanted to talk about was a specific company that Kevin has had an issue with, New You Life. And we've talked about that was just written up in Tina. Tina did a great job. And by the way, you don't want to get in Tina's sights. BK Borrego found that out. They're a very, very powerful organization. I don't always agree with them, but I do find that they do tremendous background research. And on this one company, Tom, NUL, you remember New You Life, I was on last year before anybody got a hold of it with Kevin Grimes, and we talked about this, and they have spent the last 8 or 10 months going through and vetting that company, and there's a lot of problems with that. So with that being said, let me turn it over to you, Troy, real quick, and then we'll turn it back to Kevin on his involvement with that company, as far as what you were saying during the break, as far as the need for us being amping up a notch to actually do the greater good?
Well, I think we need to showcase both the good companies, what they're doing, how they're doing it, but we also have to showcase companies that put the lives of reps at risk. Because in the old days, we would see something slammed in the media about the company themselves. But what we did see from VEMA specifically is we saw the top level reps get hit, and they literally had to pay millions of dollars themselves. So it's, if a company's not going to be responsible, then we need to talk about that. And I believe that we can do it in a way that really brings out the concerns, the issues. And we mentioned Tina. Tina's very good at doing that. I've had to deal with them. I have a former client, iMarkets Live. When Tina went after iMarkets Live, they did it in a professional manner, gave them a list of questions to answer, wanted the answers back, gave them a timeline to do it. You know, so when I looked at that, it's like, okay, we can do this same type of deal. We don't have to just go out there and try to get rankings and all that stuff. Let's go out there and say, okay, this company is doing X, Y, Z. Let's put the questions together. Let's get those answers. Let's bring it in. Let's talk about it. I'll even do a live interview with some of these companies if they want to. But as I looked backwards, and Kevin Thompson, I've talked about this, Kevin Grimes, and I've talked about it. I can't think of a time when I was wrong when we called out a company. The one time that I didn't do what I should have done was with Zeke Rewards, and we tried to fix a company way too much publicly that didn't want to be fixed. But every company that we've called out has eventually paid the price one way or the other. So it's not like we're wrong, whether that's you, me, Kevin, Tom, doesn't matter. If we can look at it and say, it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck, then it doesn't matter if it's 10 years down the road before the SEC or the FTC gets involved. It's a freaking duck, and we need to clean it up.
Right. You're honorable in proportion to the risks you're willing to take. And it would be encouraging to see more people with influence call out specific companies, but it's tough. And I'll mention a few resources out there that are not popular, but they're important because they highlight certain things. Behind MLM, Truth in Advertising, the DSSRC is now active, and FTC. And then we should be able, and it's harder for lawyers because I represent competitors, and then you have that whole thing. But people of influence, and I'll throw Richard Brooke out there. He knows what a scam is when he sees one, but he doesn't call them out by name because that invites controversy. Same with Mel Atwood. A lot of people complain about problems in the industry, but nobody says, you know what, here's an example of what not to do. I'll give you an example of what not to do right now. New You Life, okay? Before I talk about them, Herbalife was shorted in 2012 by Bill Ackman, and that went on for 6 years. They were assaulted from every angle in the media and privately for 6 years. How many people did they sue? Troy, what do you think?
I don't think of it. I'm trying to think. I don't think anybody.
Zero.
Yeah.
Right. It's and they were called a pyramid scheme and everything. They just focused on their business. When if you hit a company and they're clean, they just keep on building. But when you start seeing companies send cease and desist and they start suing people, it is a massive red flag, a sign of desperation. So I got involved in a case, and I'll keep this brief. And these are my opinions, right? Opinions are protected speech. This is a bunch of sue-happy group of morons that I've ever seen, or one of the biggest sue-happy group of morons. And I spoke with a lady, Georgia Hargett. She was a Navy military. She was a widow. And this company somehow got screenshots of her private Facebook messages. I could not believe it. And she got sued. And obviously, they're trying to silence her and bully her, in my opinion. And I couldn't walk away. I couldn't let them crush her. And so we got pulled in that case and did everything we could to get it dismissed. Hard to do. We weren't able to get it dismissed. The case is still pending. That case will go on. And there's another defendant as well. And we're actually not in the case anymore because we were conflicted out. You know, we tried to get admitted in California. There's a great local counsel in California now, and she is phenomenal, better than what our firm can do on First Amendment issues. And we tried to get admitted in California. And because I had a phone call with the founder of New You Life, Alex Goldstein, 2 years ago, as a prospective startup client, we're conflicted out. So we're not in the case. So there's a disclosure there. But Georgia and Patty, they're still clients in other matters because they've been threatened on numerous fronts. Here's what not to do. Okay, Truth in Advertising comes out, and they say here's some inappropriate disease claims that are factual. These are actually made. Here they are. Here is an FDA study. This is done by the Food and Drug Administration Office of Regulatory Affairs, done by Mr. Gamble, where it says New Life Somaderm does not have HGH in it, right? That is a fact. That is a document. So Tina, and first of all, how did Tina even get that document? It shows you the kind of influence they have. What is New Life's response? We need to do better with PR, right? We're being attacked. Thompson owns Truth in Advertising, which is a complete joke. It's one of their leaders says, my mom used to make rum cake and the alcohol cooks out. We say that there's HGH in the process somewhere, right? Instead, here's some free advice for this company. You address the factual allegations and say, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We can do better. And this is what we've done to prevent this from happening in the future. But instead, they say, we're going to do better with PR. And by the way, they're going to keep suing people that are suing two people that they claim are instigating this whole thing. And here's my last point, and I'll stop monopolizing the microphone. Troy, you already know this. Tony, you know this. Tom, maybe you don't know this. When you go after an adversary, guess what the adversary does? They start making friends and having little babies, and they start talking with other adversaries, and then it grows from there. It's almost like Voltron. I'm old enough to remember Voltron, where you have the separate pieces. When you attack one, it's going to form into a much bigger adversary. So to attack when you've been presented with facts is just the stupidest thing you can possibly do. And you just see the storm clouds forming with New Life. You see the arrogance, the lack of accountability, the lack of accepting responsibility, the lawsuits. Truth in Advertising is on them. You see the FDA material. You're like, good Lord. I mean, there's better companies to build. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Well, as we were talking about earlier, they have a track of this because whether it be behind MLM, whether it be MLM Watchdog, went at them with a good list of questions, very valid questions. I went at them with a good, valid list of questions. There was no understanding, collaboration. And just like Troy was saying earlier, you can have conversations with these companies and you can hopefully work on helping them do the greater good for the industry, for their company, for their distributors, for their customers, right? That's not been there at all. It's like working with adult freaking children.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really. And it's been really, and so sometimes you got to spank them, right? But, well, anyway.
And back to my point, when you're right, you can be right, but it takes about a year to be proven right in this industry. And during that year, you get attacked. But I don't care because I'm comfortable in my business. I've got a firm of 25 lawyers. By the way, the biggest firm out of all the lawyers in the industry. So I'm doing okay. I think it's important to defend people when you see an injustice. I don't like walking away. Because you know what? I've got 3 daughters. And if somebody were coming after them unfairly, I would hope a guy like you, Tony, or a guy like you, Troy, would step up and say, I got your back. And a guy like you, Tom.
Thank you.
I would hope that somebody would be out there to help them out. And so that's kind of my outlook.
And I want to give you a plug on that. One thing that everybody in the show, and I think, Marianne, if you can put this in the show notes, Kevin just did a great article that I think is one of the best vetting articles I've seen on how to vet a company, 10 points. And this isn't just for owners or corporate management. Anybody that's anybody that's a leader in the industry or wants to be a leader needs to understand what Kevin wrote about. And if you take those 10 points and you compare it to any company, whether it be NUL, New Life, the company that Kevin's talking about, or Digital Altitude before, there's a lot there to be learned. And why is this important for leaders, not just corporate people? I'll tell you why. The way we get change, okay, is when you have a company that they have a vested interest in you, they have your ear, you have the ability to go to them and say, listen, why are you doing this? You're putting my check at risk. People talk about the most important piece of these companies. Let me tell you the most important piece. Are they going to be in freaking business? Let's get right down to it. Are they going to be in business? And if they're going to pay you residually, you want them to be in business. So if they're doing things to jeopardize or risk your future, you want to be able to go to them and say, hey, we need more compliance. Hey, so-and-so over there is doing these severe income claims or these product claims, and we got to stop this because all it does is jeopardize the company, Tom.
All right, we got to take a break.
Educated.
Hold it. We're coming, you guys. We got to take a break. We will be back right after this. This is the Tom Chenault Show on the Genesis Communication Network. And
Troy,
we're back.
what are you doing over there? Troy, you're moving your hands. You're doing this.
Well, I did. Tony just brought something up, and I want to throw a question at you.
Do you want this to be on the show, or we're on the commercial break? Do you want to wait until we're off? Because during the final segment of the actual radio part of this, I want to finish that point and also talk about income claims, because Brooke just threw up another income claim. I mean, it is insane. A couple of these companies still thinking, and one of the companies wrote, Tina.org authorized us making these huge income claims, which is preposterous. So I just want to, I mean, that is really, and Troy, you know this, the scariest part of what's going on out there is they're going to hang us by our toes on income claims and product claims. That's where we got to be careful on Instagram, Facebook, everything else. Contactmapping.com. Hello, Adrian. You guys are going to, I'm going to go broke. I only have one sponsor and I'm going to go broke.
These guys are so I just want to be seen on television with these beautiful faces, and people are going to.
So listen to this. I used to do 3 hours of radio every day, like on 89% of the state of Colorado. Then it was streamed all over the United States. I had Maria Bartiromo, I had Trump, I had Kramer, I had Pete Najarian, and Troy Dooley had the unmitigated gall to call himself the only journalist on this show. Did you hear him say that?
I didn't say I was the only journalist.
No, I'm weeping here. I mean, golly, nuts.
I bet you he's got more C&Ds than you, Tom.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, he does. Yeah, we'll give him that one. You want that is Troy. I did not say that. Contactmapping.com. How are you? Contactmapping.com.
I'm great. TomChenault.com.
And where are we going next? We're going to go down and do Higdon's deal.
Yeah, heading down there in the beginning of Orlando. Beginning of October to Orlando. And that's going to be huge. They've got over 2,000 people coming to that thing already and growing by the day. So that's going to be a huge event down there.
And here's, Denise Chenault. My wife's actually watching this show. She's never watched this show in her life. That's really, really nice of her. I have a news flash for you guys that you guys might not know. You guys want to hear it?
Yeah.
Eric Worre has decided to continue on with GoPro, even though he publicly announced that the last one in December was the last one forever. He has absolutely reversed that decision like a good politician, and now GoPro will live on.
How about that? I didn't know that he said that he wouldn't do it. That's such a big event.
He ended it and started it up again. Did anybody else know that?
What's a good politician, Tom?
The reverse course. I mean, that was a little.
Is that an oxymoron?
That was a feeble attempt at humor.
Does that mean he's no longer building Euphoria?
Building anything? I'm telling you.
Today. Poor Jeff and now Eric.
Eric, that was Troy Dooley, by the way. Unbelievable. And one other thing during the break here, contactmapping.com, Jordan Adler's watching, and we are also happy that he's
alive.
Oh, that helicopter crash just, as a pilot, that is the scariest thing on the planet. And to see that he walked out of there unscathed, trapped under a helicopter with gas literally pouring over him, is a miracle going towards the good guys. And I'm like overcome with gratitude about that.
Tom, I had him scheduled for the show with Kevin Grimes, and I was upset because he had to cancel because of that. And then I realized what happened to him, and I felt terrible. But, I'll tell you, I think my opinion is, and I told him this, I think the reason, because he shouldn't have escaped that. When you look at the video he did and you look at what he went through, I think the reason he's so blessed, because he's blessed so many people. He uplifts so many people every day, every week, every month. That's ever since I've ever known Jordan. That's who he is. I just, no one I have more respect for in the profession, period. And I just, as a human being, he's just freaking amazing. And I really believe that made a difference. And that's my spiritual belief. But I really think that guy had some angels on his shoulders that day.
No doubt about it. All right, stand by. And we're back. This is Tom Chenault. It's the Tom Chenault Show on the Genesis Communication Network. We are with Kevin Thompson, Tony Cannuli, Troy Dooley, we're talking about what's going on out there with income claims and product claims now. I mean, it is insane stuff. And I am telling you, if you are doing it, they're going to come and get you. And even with me, you know, I'm building this house. I'm scared to death most of the time to put a picture up of the house and have somebody talk about multi-level marketing even in the comments, because I don't want a picture of me at my house to be construed as an income claim, and they can turn chicken into chicken anytime. And it is scary stuff, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree. Troy, I'm going to give you the floor here because you're ready to rock. What do you got, man?
Well, I've got a question, because one of the new things that I'm seeing in policies and procedures is this clause that you can't enter into a class action suit against the companies. But with all these claims and all of these kids and these adults and everybody's following the field, is there anything that would stop a class action lawsuit against individuals in a company?
No.
Okay.
No, individuals can be sued. Yeah, there's no contract between the class participant and the individual. And unfortunately for consumers, real quick point, and then you can keep going, those provisions are enforceable, where if you're in a company, you agree not to participate in a class action. That's the Supreme Court, capital S, capital C. So class action litigation is really hard to come by now in the industry. It's not so much of a threat anymore, unless the policies are so just one-sided, where the document is just complete. It's completely unenforceable.
Well, and I'm thinking somebody that's rallying like Tina, or somebody like, you know, some of these law firms. I mean, we now have law firms that their whole business is to go out and find reps that will come together. And if they start going after the individual reps at the top, these guys showing their jets, showing their big houses. I mean, if I was an attorney, I'm going to say, well, there's the money. I mean, if I can't, look, you guys signed a contract, we can't go after the company, but we can sure go after the guy that's got all the money over here.
Sure.
Then we've got to help the reps too. They have to understand that just because they think they want to show off, that's a huge risk that most of them can't even afford. First of all, most of it isn't paid for. I mean, there's very few of these kids have got all this crap paid for, let alone some of the older ones. We saw that just with Advocare. I mean, that just threw some people upside down because they didn't follow that example. They were upside down in debt. They've spent all the money.
Yep.
And I think that's another problem that, you know, we tell people, come into this industry, it can change your life. Brooks is great at this. It's a career move. You've got to build it out. But that's not what the majority of the crap that we see is, man, I did it just like this. Look at me. Look at my fake Gucci. Look at my fake this. Look at my leased jet. Well, actually, I didn't lease it. I just got permission to go stand in front of it. But that's okay. Photoshopping my name's on it. So it's all good. I mean, this kind of crap can kill not just the industry, but some really good-hearted people.
I think here's the problem, and I'm going to steal something Tony said today on the phone. Easy is sleazy. And the problem is there's a market of people where that works, where you show flash and it pulls them in. Sadly, it works. I think for smarter people, especially in the American market, Americans are more immune to a sleazy pitch, but to an unsophisticated market, the big money works, unfortunately. And that's where, you know, rewind the program back 30 minutes where we talk about the need to call that sort of activity out, because some companies, it is worse than others, where it's almost encouraged at the top levels, and they need to be called out.
Well, you mentioned a company earlier, and I had a person call me just the other day, very successful CEO in our profession, who was in that company that you mentioned. And they'd sold their company. He's living the high life, but he had joined this token company, got some people to join with him. And at the time, he didn't realize how bad those people were. But because of the story, hey, if you put 50 grand in or 100 grand in or all this, you can make all this money. Now he's getting some pretty bad phone calls saying, hey, you better pay us back our money. So when scams are out there and people get into them and it looks too good to be true, it probably is. I mean, you know, everybody wins a lottery once in a while, but most of these are not what they're cracked up to be. And we have to protect people. But a regulator you didn't mention was the FDA. And the FDA is starting to come after companies and manufacturers for putting in these ingredients that may be one molecule off, or just trying to get into the gray area, and that can kill some people if they're not careful too.
Sure. Yeah.
And one thing that,
Go, Tom. What's up?
what about, we had a couple of weeks ago, I got a note from our compliance guy that said one of my guys has a video out there that's got an income claim in it. Would you make sure you call him and have him pull that down? Would you say, don't you think that is, like, among leadership and among owners, policing the field for that kind of garbage
Absolutely.
is unbelievably important? And you take a look at, what Brooke just sent me with this guy from Onyx, maybe that we can't stop that guy because he's gone from company to company to company doing it. But maybe, Travis Bott says you don't do that. You can't do that. You're putting all of us at jeopardy. You're putting the profession at risk with income claims. And maybe that's how we do that. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, well, no, with what you just described, that scenario is the exception, not the norm, where the company is actually monitoring the field. And with a lot of small clients, a lot of small companies, they don't pay that expense to monitor all the activity online. So the fact that they caught it and they reached out to you to address it, that's a great historical record that your company can show if there's an investigation.
And the wise companies do monitor. And if you want to be around for decades,
you need to do it.
You better start monitoring.
Yeah, and disease claims are huge issues, particularly with CBD sellers, particularly with HGH gel companies. How it can substantially alter your organs, apparently. But you mentioned somebody. I don't want to mention his name. I've never met the guy, Tom. When
That's
you're talking,
when
you can't put chicken salad on chicken, what. And when you're talking about a Forex company or some sort of crypto token company, where the whole point is you give us your money and we will help you grow your assets. The whole thing is about money. I don't know if those kinds of companies can ever really be responsible at a high enough level. They can try, but it's tough because the whole theme of their business is to make money and maximize, revenue growth. So those kinds of concepts make me a little uncomfortable. I'm not saying they're illegal, but they make me a little uncomfortable.
But how do we address that? Because if a lot of these companies now, they're moving to Dubai or Cyprus, they're going over there, they're still coming into America, they're using the database because they're U.S. citizens. How do you help protect the U.S. citizens so that they understand, hey, maybe the company is legit in 95% of the world, but you're a U.S. citizen, this is the United States, and you can't, I think we need to educate the citizens so that they understand.
You did it. You did it
by what we've been doing, Troy. By what we've been doing, and more of it, and better at it.
Hold it for a second. You guys hold it for a second. All right, you guys. I know that I stopped a mid-sentence. We'll continue this some other day on another show. This has been the Tom Chenault Show. Thanks for listening. See you all next week. All right, we're back. Keep going now. So that was just getting us off of GCN. So I got so enthralled with you and wasn't watching the clock. So I had to cut us off because the guy that's clipping out the show is going to kill me anyway. So now continue on, man.
This whole influencer culture that we keep seeing, Tom and Kevin and Troy, that we keep seeing out there, it can be used to promote, build businesses, make money, but it can also be used to do the right thing. It can also be used to demonstrate leadership and demonstrate what the right thing looks like, sounds like, feels like. And shows like this that we're talking about and doing more of them, being better at them. And like especially what Troy is talking about, especially if we can do it in such a way. And that was the comment I made earlier in the show about liability, was specific to if you pick on one company or one leader or one owner, and they get angry at you, for instance, they could come at you, and that's the one thing that Garrett was talking about from the A&MP perspective. But at the same time, if you're smart with journalism and you know exactly what you can and cannot say, you do have the ability through opinion and through stating the facts that you can show, actually real facts that you can show, just like Kevin did in the show today. And you have that ability to help sway people and make the right decision. I mean, New You Life was a perfect example of that. In a year, the smoke is there. I said it a year ago that company had more flags in a freaking college football game. Okay. And it still does. And I'm not saying it's a bad company, but when they won't communicate with the industry watchdogs and they throw their nose up at Tina. Big mistake. Big mistake. Or they say, well, behind MLM, 300 and some odd comments, it's all BS. Or they attack Kevin because Kevin, calls them out on what they're doing, or any of the advocates in the space like myself or Tom or Kevin Grimes that we've done this. That's a problem, and that's not a good sign. But we can at least educate them and say, we can't tell you not to do this, but here's the thing. Maybe you may think twice about it. Maybe you may think twice about, and is your reputation worth it? Is your financial status worth it? And that's one of the things. And that company, for instance, as Kevin knows, was one of the biggest challenges. And I know Tom brought it up last year on the show. Their income claims were off the freaking charts. And I don't believe they were responsible income claim, just like Tom standing in front of his boat or his car, or even next to Denise. I mean, that's not responsible. You can't do that because not everybody's going to get that benefit, And anyway, so I just see that if we just are smart about it and we care enough to want to educate people, but also know how to do it. And Troy, I mean, with your background in journalism, you offer so much value there. Tom is why I keep forgetting he was in journalism. I'm
gonna have a page where I'm gonna show predictions where I've been right, and kind of list them. And
wait a minute. You also have to put up predictions where you've been wrong. Then
I'll do that too.
I've been right since the no one pantyhose deal.
Time out. I haven't gone after a company and been wrong. I don't go after very many. So just saying that, but I want to literally have a trophy case of scalps so that then you can present them to somebody and say, look, I'm not like your ordinary Joe here. I think that's important because sometimes they treat you just like, for example, Bill Ackman, when Carl Icahn got involved in the Herbalife trade, he should have backed out. It's a different dynamic. And I think we need to have a page, and Troy, you too, have a page where you can show, that I'm not your typical critic.
Yep.
Okay. And then maybe it'll get a little bit more weight.
And then we form in the Voltron.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And pull together and support each other. And you're absolutely, because sometimes we'll catch things. I'll catch things. Troy's caught so many things over the years that I missed. And he'll say, hey, Tony, be careful. Or you have, Kevin, or any of us have done that. But we're all just trying to do the greater good. We don't want to hurt anybody in the process of doing the greater good. But yet it's so freaking important because the number of people that get hurt by the time Tina gets involved. I mean, people said, why did it take so long for Tina? They put together an exhaustive research. Right. On this company. It took them almost a year. Whereas Troy, myself, Kevin Grimes, Kevin Thompson, way back in October of almost a year ago, about a year ago now, all the things that Tina said, we saw. So we saw it on the fly. So we were able to warn some people. So yeah, we could do a better job. And I'm excited that we're figuring it out. But if we form in the Voltron and we watch each other's backs and we do the greater good like this, I just think it's going to be strength that'll make a big difference.
And I think, Tony, something you just said, it took them over a year. Okay. Yep. And I think that does one thing. Kevin, you mentioned that some people think they're targeting MLM. If they had targeted MLM, they would have had somebody who would have caught that already. Instead, right. They saw some signs and then they dug into stuff that we had already seen. Yeah. And I think that goes to show we really can pop this stuff because we've been in it so much. That we just get it and we can go. And I think that the more we show people, hey, this is the hiccups. But I also think people need to understand something. And Tom, you've hit me on this. Why are you with this company? And even Richard has asked this. And it's like, there are times when companies will hire us to go in from a communication or a risk mitigation standpoint. And we see the issues that are there. Then it's easy for me to say, we can't fix this. So shut it down. Because if we can shut a company down, we can save people money. If we can fix an issue because people are just stupid and there are some
save their health.
Totally, whatever. If we can get it done, then we want to change that. We want it. We don't just want to call everybody out and say you're bad, but there are some bad apples. There are people that are freaking evil and all they care about is money in their pocket. They don't care about anybody else. And those are the ones that can hurt you. Yeah.
Have you guys heard about this company called Momentum Factor? We got a text on it this morning, so I looked at him a little bit. He's a leading digital risk management firm specializing in online compliance monitoring, in global online reputation management services, our flagship product, Field Watch,
Mm-hmm.
a leading online brand protection and compliance monitoring solution for the direct sales channel. So there's literally companies, and I think that my guy, that Steve Wallach, actually uses that because he's the one that sent me that link.
Yeah, he
But
does.
maybe that's what we need to go to, is getting out there and have third-party experts say this is outside of the lines, and you're going to get yourself in trouble with TINA, with the FTC, with the regulators, if you're letting people operate out there. And that's what we're talking about pretty much, is having a line that people will not cross. And if they do cross it, somebody's raising heck about it and bringing them back in. Is that what we need? Do you know that company, Kevin?
They're great. Yeah, Jonathan Gillum, he's a friend of mine. And he's done a great job with Field Watch, has a lot of clients. He puts on an event once a year in Austin, and where he brings together lawyers and in-house compliance personnel and just talks about issues. I mean, I think that event is worth more than 3 DSA events. So Gillum's doing very well. The challenge is that it's expensive. So only your bigger companies, in my opinion, he's going to shoot me for saying this, but it's $5,000 plus a month to use the service. And then it's just a data dump. So they give you the data. You have to have compliance personnel that does stuff with it. So it's a great tool. That being said, to Jonathan's credit, he used to have Bonnie Patton from Truth in Advertising speak at his conference. And sadly, she was not received well by people in the industry because they sort of viewed her as an enemy. And so he wasn't able to invite her back. I think we need to view these people as partners, and everybody brings something unique to the table.
What's his name? What's the guy's name?
Gillum.
Jonathan Gillum is what I call him. Gilliam.
He is watching the show.
Yeah.
That is so funny. His name just came up. I've never heard of the guy. I just saw his website today. So sir, I don't know who you are, but I'm not kissing your ass. I just happened to see an article by you today. So I put it. So please.
I'm surprised he's back from Burning Man by now.
Whatever is going on, that is hilarious. So yeah, he's watching the show.
Well, this is exactly why we need to bring and put pressure on companies to, and the leaders in those companies, to put pressure on the companies to do the right thing, because their family and livelihood is online. And the more, instead of turning our head in the sand and go, I don't care about that, the company just makes the policy and I do my thing and I get paid and that's great and I go on my trips. Well, wait a minute, that stops instantly, as we learn from Advocare. That stops instantly, as we learn from VEMA. That can stop instantly, and it has a number of times. So the more that we can educate the leadership in the real rank and file, the 1 million, I think Larry Thompson had said recently that about 1 million people that were like really serious full-time here in the industry, that versus 5 million total, most are part-time. But if we can take this one small group of people and say, listen, no matter what company you are in, make sure that you are watching out for the industry, for your friends, your neighbors, and the companies themselves, and then make sure that you work with them. And then if these companies can bring on more compliance, because you got to have the personnel, as Kevin talked about. And Troy has a lot of experience and background in compliance, but you got to have the people in there. So to monitor it does kind of good, but without the people that can make changes and do something with what they're monitoring, it's a little bit difficult. And the long-term companies out there will monitor this stuff very carefully, because the thing is now 10 to 15 years, into the internet that we know, building online, it's not like it used to be. It was really easy to watch and look at brochures and go, okay, that's compliance. It was really easy to be careful of what people said at meetings. And then the regulators weren't necessarily sitting in a meeting in a hotel room watching what Troy may have said that he shouldn't have made an income claim, or Jim or Bill or whoever it was, the leader standing there may have made a claim. It was harder for them to get that information. When you're online, it's fed right to them. And you got companies or groups like TINA that will feed that information to the FTC, and that information's there. It's a lot more complicated, which means that our compliance efforts become more complicated. There's a lot of complexities now that we're building online, okay, that's not as simple. And we got to start doing a better job, I think. And I know Troy talks about this quite a bit, and I do a lot, and Tom on the shows, but we really got to do a better job at bringing in a more understanding as to, just because you're saying it in a Facebook Live doesn't mean you can say it.
Well, and something, Tom, Jonathan got his start with Trey White over at Evolve. He was one of his original guys that launched that company. So he really does understand MLM. But it's with where we're coming from now, I think, is the company owners don't realize compliance, although that is important, don't get me wrong, it actually starts with the marketing team. because Main Street companies, if you look at a Starbucks and an Apple, you look at Boeing, I don't care who it is, Southwest Airline, they're using algorithms on the marketing side and the communication side so that they know what Main Street is saying. They're monitoring the conversation, not just internal, but what does the customers say? When Southwest Airlines plane went down and the young lady was killed because the engine blew out the window, they were in a meeting in Dallas. All of their pagers went off at once. They knew it was a major catastrophe, and they had a comment that was made. They knew exactly what they were doing. Took everyone, paid. I mean, they had this down. Disney's another one that does this phenomenally well. If network marketing companies would realize this is about our brand, it's not just about some independent contractor over here at the side, and they started protecting their brand, everything would start to line up. And all of our new clients that we do communication and risk mitigation for, we build the whole program out in advance so that there's not that oops. Because the worst person in a company is not the independent distributor. It's the CEO that goes and parties with them. And then there's a YouTube or there's a Facebook, and he screwed his whole life up and the whole company up. And I see more of that today than I mean, the income claims are bad, but it amazes me how much video I get in of CEOs, females and males, who do just the most asinine stuff with their reps. And then they wonder why they lose respect in the industry.
Did that ever happen? I don't drink, so it's not like I would ever drink with anybody. But I mean, as a leader, you never, ever do that, do you?
Dude, I can tell you, I've seen it at associations all the way up to company events, dude. It's amazing.
I know.
I just want to say kind of an amen for Troy's point, where it does start at the top. And the marketing team and the leadership sort of sets the tone and the expectations.
The languaging.
Behave. This is how you behave. This is just not our brand. It's a little too sleazy. Stop. And you don't see that usually. Usually the leaders, they kind of launch their companies. The owners do. And they sort of just kind of let the field do what they want to do. That they let the inmates run the asylum. And there's no consistent culture throughout the organization. There's a couple of companies that do it well. I don't want to name them to piss anybody off or exclude anybody, but and I put that in my article. Tony mentioned the article, 10 things that startups can do to put themselves in a better position. That's from over 10 years of experience, just seeing patterns, what separates winners from losers. One of them is smart founders craft the story.
Yes.
They don't leave it up to chance. That was Troy's point. A lot of your less intelligent founders, they don't really think that through. They just launch the product, they launch the pay plan, like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And they sort of let it just sort of take off on its own. That's a big mistake.
Well, I'm gonna name a company because they are not a client whatsoever. So I think I'm clean on this one. But if you take what Paul and Jason have done at Lavelle with their Thrive culture, you can't even find a compensation plan on the website. They have a 1, 2, 3 model. You can't find any videos. You can't, because to them, it's all about the brand. It's all about the culture that they've created over there. And people, they all say the same thing. You go find somebody in Lavelle and they're passionate about whatever the little patch thing is, or they're passionate about the skincare, but they're passionate about thriving and doing this. And it's like, they're a good example of a modern company. It's all about the brand and longevity. Tom, I'm going to throw your company in here because they're this company that's got all these different brands. And when you touch on to people who are in one of those brands, they explode about the brand. They don't talk about compensation. They're talking about, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing next to sliced bread. And I think that's what we have to do, because if I talk about Apple, I guarantee you people are talking about the brand. If I talk about Harley Davidson, nobody's talking about how somebody gets paid or how's the affiliate program work or any of that crap. They just want to talk about the culture.
Another important piece that Kevin talks about in that is culture is everything. You have to have a strong culture. And that's another thing you can see typically a lot of these companies have. They may have a culture, maybe a bad culture or fragmented at best, but they don't have a cohesive, solid culture. And if they don't, that kind of is a clue to me that they're not here planning for the long term.
Well, and Tony, culture is different than a cult. And some of these companies act like a cult versus a culture.
Right. Us versus the world.
Yeah.
That's right.
So there's a comment here wanting to know if you're are you guys starting a crypto education company? Kevin and Troy and Jeff Welch and
Oh my God. No.
Jeff.
No,
Oh, no,
but
not Jeff again. Poor Jeff.
I've got some clients that way though, but not
Yeah, Tom, I only operate one business. That's the one that puts food on the table, and that's my firm. Based out of Nashville, 25 lawyers. And I'm really proud of the folks that we got. Kevin Grimes is one of them.
And my favorite, Kevin Grimes.
I have him as a partner. He's a good
Besides
man.
you.
And by the way, he recently adopted a new child.
I love that guy. In fact, I was where he lives. Where's he live?
Idaho Falls.
He lives where?
Idaho Springs. Sorry.
Idaho Springs, Colorado?
In Idaho.
Idaho.
Idaho, that's a state. All right.
I thought he lived in Europe and South America and all.
Well, you would have thought so this summer.
Well, he was someplace I was because I was going to look him up because I have so much admiration for the guy's heart. I don't know what as a lawyer from a hill of beans, but I tell you one thing right now, this guy is something else when it comes to philanthropy and really taking on the underdog. And I love him for that. And I don't even know him. I mean,
Hey, and Tom, let me say something. Kevin and I both have lots of clients that do lots of things. Sometimes we're on their website, sometimes we're not. I personally have equity in probably 7 different companies. Some of those are private, some of them are public, because people, if they can't pay the retainer, then we'll take an equity piece. It's always a minor piece, and that's what we do. So I'll be very clear on that. And we do right now. I have a client that's in the education platform. They've got a SaaS platform that's out there, but it's not just crypto. They've got all kinds of stuff, travel and tax attorneys and everything.
I think that those are just basically, you talked about a couple of companies, and those might be people that were at companies that you previously were with that you fired, that are pissed off about it, that are saying, ask him about that. So that's why I just wanted to put the cards on the table to shut him up.
Yeah, and Troy's going to come on to one of the shows with Kevin Grimes and myself. One of the things that we're going to talk about will most likely be this contract, some of these issues around the contract law. We touched on a little bit and how that can, we're going to be monitoring that. We'll be talking about that. And then, of course, the whole pop culture issue that Kevin, I wish we could have talked a little bit about that, Kevin, today, but that is so valuable because most people in this industry have no idea what we're going to say.
So you guys were on the home, whatever, I'm going to change the name of this show, by the way, and I'm not going to tell you what it's called next. But the reason I changed it was because you and Firebaugh and Troy and everybody got together, and I had the home-based business radio show in the old days. So you guys decided to change and start your show called the Home Business Radio Show. So
Right.
it was the radio. It was the radio network.
Whatever you did, you totally hosed me. So I said, okay, I'm going to call it the Tom Chenault Show and see if you guys try to steal that, which you never did. But now I'm going to go back to another generic name because I'm going to do a big podcast coming up. But I want to acknowledge Tony Cannuli because I made a mistake. And many years ago, he called me and said, Tom, you've got to get to know Larry and Taylor Thompson. You've got to understand who they are. I've done all these interviews. Please listen to these interviews. And I rolled my eyes and I never did it. And Tony, I want to officially apologize to you because I got to know these people over the last 12 months. And I am telling you, I am in awe of them and you, and I wanted to publicly apologize to everybody because Tony Cannuli was the first guy that put them on my radar, and I love him. So we've got to go. This show was supposed to end about half an hour ago, and Marianne is she's got a bottle of vodka back there, and she is just getting ready to nip on it. So I wanted to thank every one of you guys for coming on. I love you with all of my heart, and I could continue on this for hours. I just can't thank you enough for wanting to keep this profession clean. The integrity that you guys exude, the courage that you exude is unbelievable. And thanks a million for coming on, man.
It's a privilege.
Love you guys.
All right.